Start recording. I think we're good. All right. So David, I'm going to unmute you. If you mute yourself, I'll have to unmute you. So heads up. Which is fine. If you have some loud noises, I can always unmute you. Anyway, welcome in. I believe this is the 7th happy hour. That sounds right. We've been doing these every week, every Monday during the pandemic. So I thought it'd be cool to have you on and really talk about the business side of brewing. We've asked some of our previous people that have come on, our guests, about some of the business stuff, but all I ever hear about is how awesome you are at running a brewery. So I'm going to pick your brain on some of that stuff tonight. Hope you're ready.
Who's spreading that?
Yeah, I know, right? All right, so first question, I kind of gave you, someone did forget the cue here, right? I gave you some time to think about it. What made you take the plunge into opening a brewery?
Yeah, so over the years of home brewing, I think probably like a lot of you guys kind of had that thought that, maybe could do it. Maybe should try to sell this product that we're producing that people seem to like. And so over the years, I think, thought about it in varying levels of seriousness. Seemed to ebb and flow with satisfaction with the day job, get frustrated, think more seriously about it. Things are going well, maybe put it aside. But I think just, I don't know what the trigger was or that there was one. I think just kind of finally decided that it was now or never. Gonna just jump in, start working on it. Of course, when it started like planning seriously, there's no guarantee at that point that it was going to work out or happen. I mean, there was a million things along the way that, easily could have prevented it from happening. But that was the beginning of 2017. It was like right around New Year's 2016, beginning 2017, that just started like seriously planning, started doing research, took some business courses and just kind of following down all the leads and trying to figure it all out and end up working out. You're muted.
I was going to ask you a follow-up question. So what did you do before opening the brewery? But before you answer that, I did a bad job. East Forty Brewing, I guess I should have led with that. Tell us a little bit about your brewery, where it's at, what you guys try to do, etc. If you want to give that to people that may not know you as well as some of the people in this group.
Sure. So yeah, East 40, we're in downtown Blue Springs. I live in Blue Springs, so naturally was trying to find a location close to home to open it at. And East 40 was the name that I picked before doing my first ever homebrew festival, Nano Brew, 14. Just decided to like pick a name, and if I ever, turned into something more serious, something I thought hopefully I'd be able to stick with. So it's just kind of a reference to east side out here of the metro. And, 40 has kind of a dual meaning to 40 acres, common land parcel size in rural America. So kind of out here on the outskirts where it starts to get a little more rural. And then 40 Highway, which runs through Blue Springs, which I thought possibly brewery could be located on. Ended up a few blocks off of it, but decided to stick with the name anyway.
Right on. All right, so back to my other question. What did you do before you brewed? I didn't, or had owned a brewery. I've never actually asked that before.
Yeah, so I actually still do it a little bit. Work about one day a week for the job that I had full-time prior to opening the brewery. And that's, I'm a geographic information systems developer. and I work for a renewable energy developer. So we do wind and solar, and just recently the company split. So we just do solar and storage, like utility scale projects. So it's a pretty cool company, pretty, I have a lot of fun with it. Like working for them. So I didn't want to completely give it up. Plus it pays the bills. So tried to stick with it as much as possible. And, one day a week is about as much as I can handle still. Maybe one day get back to it a little bit more, but brewery's pretty time consuming.
I seem to notice a trend. A lot of people that own breweries or work at breweries have more than one job. What's with that?
I don't know what you have to do to make a bunch of money out of the gate, but seems to take a little while to get things going where you can pay yourself a good salary and make that your only job.
I hear you. All right, let's get into some of the stuff about your brewery. Why'd you choose the location that you're at?
So like I said, I live in Blue Springs. Wanted it ideally to be close to home because I go there every day. And, that's one of those things when you try to move away from a day job, a commute is one of the things that sucks generally. Mine did for sure. I had a 45-minute commute out to Lenexa each way. So yeah, I just wanted to be close to home, and it was something that, was needed on this side of town. I mean, there wasn't any breweries in Blue Springs, and there's a couple Lee Summit, and was there in Lee Summit? Yeah, a couple down in Lee Summit, and Crane, and Raytown would be the closest, but nothing super close, and just something that I thought that this area needed. You're muted.
Yeah, no, I was looking at this thing. Let's talk about your tap room and like the design of your tap room. How'd you come up with that and like the live edge and the concrete countertops and all that?
Yeah, so just wanted to kind of, play off of the, the name, and the kind of rural, influence behind that. So just wanted to make it comfortable and kind of bring in some of those aspects with the barn wood and just kind of a nice homey feeling that people could be comfortable in and relax, and nothing too clean or industrial, just kind of a chill vibe. And so brought in a lot of barn wood, brought in the live edge wood, concrete. I just worked with Brian Smith and had seen a lot of really cool stuff that he had done, so I knew that I wanted to do that. Yeah.
Let's talk about your brew house. This one comes from Alex. Talk about what you're brewing on out there and the capacity.
Yeah. So we have a 7-barrel direct fire brew house from ABE. So got 7-barrel mash tun, 7-barrel kettle, and then a 15-barrel hot liquor tank and a 15-barrel cold liquor tank that we use for knocking out, and 3 7-barrel fermenters, 2 3.5-barrel fermenters, and then we've got the pilot system, which I got kind of towards the end of my home brewing in planning for the commercial brewery, half-barrel spike system. So we've got a few 3 half-barrel fermenters that go with that we do kind of pilot batch stuff on. I don't know if you asked this already, but kind of the reasoning behind the size, just wanted something that we could, brew on out of the gate, doing half batches, because with your brew house, you can only brew so little, about half is about, as low as you can go in those kettles. So wanted something that had the capacity for us to grow into a little bit so that we weren't trying to swap that out after a year or 2 years or whatever. because it's expensive stuff and it's a pain in the ass to put in. So just got something that we'd be able to brew, 3-4 barrel batches on, if that was enough out of the gate, but gave us room to grow into. And, just figured running barrels per year that we could anticipate that 7-barrel system would take care of us for a good long while with the tap room only model that we, are operating under.
Would you say that you've grown fully into your system? Are you there?
No, not at all. We still, there's several of our beers that we do brew, to capacity. We don't quite get 7 barrels out. We can get about 6.5 barrels. But there's still some that we do, 4-barrel batches on, just based on, how we see things selling and how long we expect something, reasonably to stay fresh, because we don't want to brew too much that we're dumping it, or that we're serving it beyond its, best by date. So, and we're brewing at this point, it varies, especially now, it's crazy times, but, maybe an average of twice a week. So, I mean, to be at capacity, no, we could brew 7 days a week and a couple times a day, so we could increase our output, 5 times still with more fermenters.
Yeah, right on. There's a couple questions here. Some of them we're going to get to here in a second with some other things that we already have on paper. But I do want to ask this one. How often are the beers you brew your recipe versus, I know we're going to talk about your head brewer here in a second, and how many of your recipes are collaboration beers?
So I think I told you this earlier, Billy. I haven't designed a recipe since I opened the brewery. So Nate does a great job at that. So all of our flagship beers were recipes of mine that I developed over the years. And, any more, Nate designs the beers and we'll collaborate, we'll talk about, what we want to get out of it. But for the most part, I let him, run that side of things, and he does an excellent job at it. So I don't question his decisions on recipe development, and kind of let him run with that. So, now most of the beers are his, and we tweak stuff here and there, but I give him the majority of the credit for the great beers that we make.
It's awesome to hear someone that owns a brewery that can kind of delegate that task. It's a big part to having a brewery, and there's some people out in the industry that don't seem to have that same outlook, so it's refreshing. Let's talk about food. How did you decide that you wanted to do food, and how did you decide what food you wanted to serve?
Yeah. So I always knew that we wanted to have food. Through the planning process, I didn't know always that we would make it. So I explored, various options, from just having food trucks to, subletting the kitchen space and having someone else do their thing. And that was kind of the route that I was running down for a good while, but just never found something that made sense for that. So then we just decided to do it ourselves. And I think the main reason is just, more than featuring the food, we're a brewery, we want to feature our beer, but we want to have something for people to eat while they're there, because it'll keep them around longer, drinking more beers. So my goal for the kitchen from the outset was, if the kitchen on its own breaks even, I'll be happy with that, because it means that people are going to stick around, and have 3 or 4 beers, rather than have one and then figure out where they're going to go eat dinner. And then as far as what we have, pizzas were kind of the main dish, the main thing that we have. We have several other options, but, I think pizza and beer are a great combo. I worked in several pizza places over the years, so I kind of knew, not that it's that hard to make, but kind of knew, the operations of a pizza place. And, we just try to keep it simple. So, we have a very simple kitchen setup. Didn't want to go too expensive with the build out, so we didn't do a big grill and grease hoods and fryers and all that stuff. We literally just have a bunch of countertop ovens and some hot plates for doing saucepans on, and a microwave, and basically just try to figure out all the stuff that we can make using the tools that we have. So it's good. I like it. I'd eat it multiple times a week, obviously, but I would like to expand on it still, and we're always trying to add stuff. And we'll continue to do that and just try to make it better as we go.
Well, I think I could certainly eat your food a couple times a week for a long time, but I'm sure it gets old at some point.
Everything does.
Yeah. So you mentioned wanting to kind of put beer and focus on beer, but you also have quite a few cocktails if you go that route. So let's talk about that and why you decided to open up the book of business.
Sure. So really, our goal is to have something for everybody. So, I know, a lot of families or a lot of people go out with their friends, not everybody drinks beer, and, you're either dragging someone out unwillingly, where they're not going to have anything they can find that they like, or they're not going to go out with you. So we just try to cater to everybody with something. So, we do the cocktails, we have wine. We've always had cider, we didn't always make it. Now we make it. And non-alcoholic stuff, we try to have several options, for that as well. Like I said, just try to check all the boxes, have something that, at least everybody can find one thing that they like, if nothing else.
Yeah, I love it. I think I got a couple of your cocktails to go when I was over at Windshift on Saturday. Me and Tony stayed a little late and watched some of the draft. It was pretty great. I like them cocktails, and thank you for packaging those for to-go options. It's amazing.
Yeah, that was as soon as the state allowed us to start doing that, we jumped on it. I know a lot of places had been doing it since the shutdown, but it's actually legal now, and yeah, it's been a nice added source of revenue for us for sure.
I bet. You posted something on Facebook the other day about repaving the parking lot and building the patio. Let's talk about that. Why did you want an outdoor space? And I don't know, anything about it that in particular really drove you to do that and build such a big patio?
Uh, Patios are awesome. People love to be outside. We had the space for it. That was definitely a plus. When I was searching for buildings, was not just the building itself, but what kind of space did it have for a patio? What kind of space does it have for parking? And we're fortunate to have a good amount of parking. Is it always enough? Like, absolutely not. We could always use more, but I know that, especially compared to places like in, the city, or, in more populated areas that don't have the luxury of having parking, that's huge. So, yeah, just wanted, like I said, expand, the seating area and provide a place for people to sit outside and play games and enjoy it when it's nice out. We put the garage door in. For anyone that's been, that garage door wasn't always there. We had to knock a hole out of the wall and put that in, but it's awesome when the weather's nice enough to have it open. Just really opens up the whole place, and inside, outside. Yeah, really enjoy that.
We have a question from Kevin Olson on going green. Why'd you decide to go green, and how green are you?
So green, it hurts. It's kind of a personal mission of mine. I've always, in my personal life, tried to be sustainable, and it's just something that carries over from that. So, in some cases, it saves us money, like solar. It's great for the earth, but it also is great for our electric bill. In other cases, I mean, it costs us money. Like, it's not, it'd be cheaper just to throw everything in the dumpster, but, we decide to have a service that comes and picks up our compost and, to divert all of our recyclable material and pay someone to take that each week. But I think it's just the right thing to do. So, yeah, we solar, water recapture. I think it's something most breweries do. When we're knocking out, we're pumping that water right back into our hot liquor tank to be used again. Diverting all of our recyclable, compostable material, and just the choices that we make in materials. Recently, have swapped out some of the containers and liners and stuff that we're using in the kitchen just to be able to compost those rather than throwing them in the trash. And there's still some stuff, that it's a work in progress. But yeah, just trying to do it one day at a time and, make the changes that we, move in the direction that we'd like to be moving. And I would say we're pretty green, but there's always room to go, to get better and improve, and we'll keep heading down that path.
Another question from Dakota is, do you see the brewery ever becoming your full-time job?
Yes and no. I mean, I love it when that's all I have to do and that's all I have to worry about. I don't have to worry about my other job. So there's days that, I think about, trying to do that, trying to get away from my other job. But at the same time, I'm thinking about the long-term, profitability of the company and, just personal goals, and, think about trying to get back to my other job more, as things are possible to be delegated to others. But that's always a struggle too, is every time I try to take a step away or hand something off, something happens, somebody leaves and stuff needs to be picked up, or coronavirus happens and you got to change your business model every week. So yeah, I would love for it to be, but that's yet to be seen whether that'll be the case or not.
We're actually going to dive into the coronavirus a little bit here and how that impacted your, or is impacting your brewery here in a bit. But let's move to, let's talk about people. I love people, even though a lot of people probably say I don't. One of my passions is leading people and like hiring people and finding the right person for the right task. Let's talk about how you decide who you're going to hire and why you hired Alex.
Well, that would lead some to believe don't have the best decision making. I'm kidding, Alex. No, yeah, people, I think finding the right people, and I think is probably one of the most difficult parts of, any business. And, we've been fortunate over the, goddamn, it's a loud bird, over the years, just to find the right people at the right times. I kind of have this feeling that everything, works out for a reason. And, it just so happened that every time we're looking to fill a position, by one, way or another, someone would just kind of fall in our lap. So we've definitely, sought out people for various things, but I think for the most part, just as soon as we're looking for something, someone would know someone, or someone would reach out or whatever, and we start talking with that person, just realize that it was a good fit and brought them on. So we've been fortunate in that regard.
Awesome. I I want to talk about like brew schedules and ordering grain. Can you speak to that and how you kind of plan that ahead of time?
Yeah, I leave it to Nate. Nate does that. uh, no, we kind of schedule out a rough brew schedule. We'll meet, you know, once a year or every 6 months and just kind of lay out when we want to release various beers and go through month by month and say what kind of beers we're going to do, and then kind of put those on the calendar and just work back from there to figure out when they're actually going to be brewed and when you're going to need stuff for it. And yeah, just kind of go from there for ordering. You know doesn't take a lot of brews to put together a pallet of grain, and that's, basically just trying to hit a pallet when you order and try to fill it up because you're going to pay, shipping and pallet fees, per pallet. So we just try to fill it up with all 2,200 pounds that'll fit on it and, get that, going planned out for the next several brews and then just reorder when we need to. And that's on the grain side of things. Hops are a little different with availability and everything. So we'll try to get those for 6 months to a year and just get them when they're available. Or if we didn't get them when they're available, get them when we need them. But just get big quantities of those, keep them vacuum sealed, keep them in the freezer, and use them when we need them.
Let's talk about your head brewer, Nate, as you've introduced him, and how you found him.
Yeah, so that was a connection, kind of friend of a friend type of deal. So my partner in the business used to work with Nate's wife at Men's Warehouse long time ago. And then Alex, Nate's wife, moved to Philadelphia where she met Nate. They got married. Nate was brewing out there, worked at several breweries out there, and just happened that at the time that we were starting to look for a brewer, she reached out to Matt, said, "Hey, saw that you're opening a brewery. Just wanted to reach out and see if you had any connections, knew anybody that might be hiring for a brewer because they're looking to move back to Kansas City." And happened that we were hiring for a brewer. So we got to talking with Nate. We flew him out a couple times, talked with him, and just found it to be a really great fit. And timing worked out. He was able to move here, officially wrap up his other commitments and move here the week that we were opening. So all the beers on opening day, if you had them and they weren't good, that was my fault. I brewed them. But Nate joined us on opening week and has been heading up the brewery since then.
Right on. Were those initial beers well received?
They were. They weren't terrible.
Awesome. Let's talk about the biggest surprise you've had since opening your brewery. What's caught you off guard?
Coronavirus.
That's an easy out, but yeah, I totally agree.
Everything was going so well, then coronavirus.
Let's see. What do you love most about having a brewery?
I think just really just seeing, people in there genuinely enjoying themselves, enjoying the beers. That's definitely the most rewarding part of it, as everyone that's, served at beer festivals, you've all experienced, serving your beer to people and, getting their reactions and, telling you how much they like it or not, whatever. But, when you see people like enjoying it and actually, asking you questions about it and, especially when you get to the point where they'll actually pay you money for it, it's pretty rewarding. So I would say that, just kind of seeing people enjoy themselves and come back again and again.
Nick wants a follow-up. He says, other than Corona.
What was the most
Let's
surprising?
find out the harder surprise. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess maybe the expense of various things, through all the business planning. You try to account for everything. But there's always things that pop up that you didn't think about. I never knew or expected that we'd be paying like $3,000+ a year to music licensing companies, performing rights organizations, whatever the fuck they call themselves, that'll basically just hound you until you pay them their money. Whether we had live music or not, just for playing a radio or a TV in your tap room with volume, they're going to come after you until you pay them their money. Stuff like that, I think, from a business plan to reality, everything is just bigger. Like, we're doing more sales, we have more revenue than I anticipated, but also the expenses are just that much higher too. So it all shakes out in the end. But there's just a lot of unexpected expenses. For those of you that own houses, I'm sure you know how much fun home maintenance is. When you own a brewery, you get to do it there too. So shit breaks, you got to fix it. You're the one in charge. That's fun.
Let's talk a little bit about music. I was talking to you about this like a little beforehand, like I think I was anyway, about music and how the guy that you had on your page on Saturday was just a hell of an artist. And what drew you to like having live music and paying all those licensing fees? What made you decide to go ahead and do
that? It was something I always wanted to do. I think that, music is really special to me. It's always been something that I've enjoyed, going to see live music. Again, with, Blue Springs not having a brewery, I also felt like there wasn't, a lot of great options just for places to go hang out and to see live music. And it was just something that I knew that I wanted to kind of bring to the city. And so, it was always in the plan, when we were, sketching it out and building the place. We built a stage for it. I had a buddy from St. Louis who's a sound engineer who helped me figure out all the equipment I was going to need to, have a nice sound system. And the artists, when they come play, they really enjoy that we have that system there, and we'll, dial them in rather than, them having to lug their PA around. So we just, set it up to enable us to have, really good music. And, we were doing, for the first year and a half, we were having live music once a week, like scheduled live music. Then we have our open mic night on Tuesdays. And then just recently, February into March, started doing it 2 nights a week, so both Friday and Saturday nights. And it's usually, really well received. Usually brings people in, so it, the goal is that it pays for itself and then brings in additional revenue. And does it always? No. Sometimes you get someone in there and they don't have a good following, and we didn't do our job marketing it well enough to get people in, or you schedule some big expensive band and then you get a fucking ice storm and nobody comes out, in which case, if that's going to happen, you can cancel. But it's just as bad for bands that have scheduled these things and turn down other gigs that they could be playing somewhere else. So you try to keep them booked, unless it's just a really bad situation, weather-wise or virus-wise. So yeah, we get some good music. I try to book stuff for the most part that I enjoy. It's not always everybody's cup of tea, but I'll book stuff that isn't my cup of tea either, but that people in this area seem to like too. So just try to have a variety and get stuff that'll bring people in. And Saturday night, the guy we had streaming, Matt, he's actually a buddy of mine from college as well. He actually lives in St. Louis, and he's come out and played several times. So yeah, he's just a super talented dude. So lucky to know him and to get him out to play our place.
Yeah, next time he's in town, I hope I catch it. As long as I know about it, I'll be there. Let's talk about social media and the strategies you use to promote your business and what you have going on.
Yeah, social media is a very important tool. I don't know. We have a strategy per se, other than post what we have going on. Try to post often, at least get stuff out there. We don't post every day, but the goal is to kind of post something as close to every day as possible and just really, promote everything that we have going on, whether it's beer releases, live music, whatever the case may be. And just keep people engaged. I know it's, a good thing to just engage people, whether you're trying to sell them something or not. So you may be telling them about something they can come get, or, you're just engaging with them, finding out what they like, asking questions, that kind of stuff. So it's always good to kind of mix that stuff in as well, rather than like always just pushing, your product and what you're trying to sell. So that's kind of the strategy. For the most part, it's been myself. My wife, she does proofing and writing for a living, so she pretty much proofs everything that we put out. I've tried to like pass off some of the marketing stuff at various times. I'm actually working with a guy right now who's gonna hopefully start to take over some of our social media stuff and take that off of my plate. But it's just one of those things that's difficult, because we have our voice and, how we like to portray our company. And so it's just one of those things that's difficult to pass off to someone else. So it requires oversight, for a while. And the goal is that we are able to have somebody that we trust take care of that. And hopefully we get to that soon.
All right. Let's talk about a typical day at the brewery. What does that look like for you?
Answering emails, really just kind of doing a little bit of everything. So just, I guess I'd say there is no typical day at the brewery. Just kind of depends on what's needed at the time. But yeah, a lot of emails, a lot of, whether it's, booking bands or just responding to requests. People are ask for donations constantly, so gotta, try to field those, get back to people. Helping in the brewery, helping Nate with packaging or, brewing pilot batches or, whatever. Maintenance, fixing stuff that's always broken. Something's always broken and needs fixed. Just, yeah, so a little bit of everything. And then social media, like I said, doing that kind of stuff. Updating menus and, our point of sale system, just making sure everything's in there when it needs to be before we open. We're able to, we have out on our online menus, what we're actually selling, or when we're open, our print menus are up to date and everything's in the system so that it can actually be sold when someone wants to buy it. So just keeping on top of all that stuff. Yeah, just little bit of everything.
Get back to the COVID-19. How has that impacted your brewery? Obviously, in every way imaginable, but anything specifically?
Yeah, it's been a pretty crazy time. We've been affected in pretty much every way. We're no longer, doing our, normal business of having people in and serving them pints of beer. So from day one of the shutdown, we're scrambling to figure out, how we're going to do business, figuring out, how we're going to sell our beer. Obviously, keep doing growlers, but we're not going to take in outside growlers. We're going to do a shitload of more packaging, several days a week. We're going to be canning beer, bottling beer, figuring out, what our hours are going to be. So, immediately we cut way back, and then we've been, adjusting the hours each week and adding days back. And, really like every week has been something new. We're trying to do something new. Just in the fact of like, how are people going to know what we have? So we, shifted our, untapped menu online to, include everything that we're selling, from beer to cocktails to food, and including the prices on there, because our point of sale still doesn't support online ordering yet. So we're, exploring options for how to do online ordering, but then our point of sale says, oh, we're going to have that ready in 2 weeks. And it's been 5, and we're still, trying to do other things to get by until they have it, ready to where we can actually use it. And then just, of course, the actual, safety considerations and, considering, our staff and whether we want them to be working, whether they want to be working. Obviously if nobody wanted to, if they didn't feel safe, being in public, then we would just shut down, and that was something we were prepared to do. But we had several guys that, said, hey, I want to keep doing this. I'm not worried about it. We'll take the necessary precautions and, whatever you need us to do. So that was great. We got some really great people on our team, and just taking it one day at a time. And there's literally something new every day to consider.
Dave wants you to talk about delivery because it's awesome.
Who does?
Pimpleman, snitches get stitches, if you're looking at the names on the screen.
What about it? It was something we actually, like, on the day of the shutdown, I was talking to the city, and I was like, hey, can we do this? Is this something we're licensed to do? And of course, the city of Blue Springs, they get this rap for not being very easy to work with. And I see it sometimes for sure. They're like, actually, no, you need to buy this other license. And then, I chase it down. I follow up with the state. I'm like, well, the state says we can do it with our existing licenses. And you told me that you modeled your licensing after the states, and they got to run it up the chain. Like, oh yeah, actually you are licensed to do that. So, I figured out that we could and knew that we wanted to. And then it took a couple weeks to get up and running, because we had to figure out, how we're going to do it, and, when we want to do it, what makes sense. So we, rather than like delivering on demand, we deliver every day but Sunday, but we have like a window. And so, we take orders anytime, but you have to order before 1 p.m. and then you'll get it sometime in the afternoon between 1 and 5 p.m. And so that works out, because we can, know ahead of time what we've got. We can, plan a route and just take, however many deliveries there are, whether it's 1 or 5, whatever, and take them all rather than, running, back and forth. And it doesn't allow us to do hot food, but we kind of got around that by doing some like cook at home stuff. And that's been pretty popular. So just putting together like a pizza kit or a soft pretzel kit that you put together and bake at home, and it's kind of fun, for people to do. And they can, you get it by 5 p.m. and then you can cook it, for dinner that night or in a couple days, whatever. And then we're not worried about, taking it and getting it there in 30 minutes, people expect from pizza delivery.
Kevin, I'm gonna ask some follow-up questions that people have had through the chats. Catch up on those. Kevin wants to know: are there any insurance implications with delivery?
Yeah, we had to make sure we had to add a additional rider to our policy that covers. It's called like hired non-owned auto. So the driver's insurance, their personal insurance is first. So if they got an accident, it's on their insurance, but then our coverage is, above and beyond that. So if somebody decides they want to come after, the company that someone's working for, then we're covered beyond that. And we just have to make sure that anyone that's driving for us has a minimum, amount of coverage that our insurance stipulates. And then, it costs us a little bit extra, but it's nothing too crazy.
And another question, have you looked into like third-party delivery sources like Drizzly, which I learned about today, believe it or not?
Not in too much depth, no. Yeah, maybe a good option. Ours works out for us, well enough. And it's another way for us to keep getting some hours for some guys. So it doesn't cost us too much, and it keeps getting them hours, keeps getting them tips. So we don't really have a need, I guess, for a third party.
All right, I'm going to totally shift gears on you. Dakota asked back in the day here in this chat, and I was trying to find a good place to fit it in, but we'll just do it now. What led you to bring on a head brewer rather than brewing yourself?
Turns out there's a lot to do running a brewery, and I can't imagine doing all of that. Because Nate's a full-time employee. He's the head brewer and he works full-time, and he could use an assistant sometimes. I can't imagine trying to do all that and trying to run the business. I know some people do it. Tony, fuck you, Mac, you don't do it. You got like 8 partners. But yeah, it's just a lot. So yeah, definitely knew it was something, that we wanted to do. I guess not always, I guess in the initial planning, I thought that I would be brewing. But yeah, quickly realized we're going to need help.
The last question to catch up on, Eric wants to know how your beers have evolved over time, and how you go about making tweaks, changes, etc.
So I think our flagships have been relatively stable. We've, of course, made some tweaks, as we've, there's changes in water, we try to, stay on top of that. Or just, you have changes in ingredients, over the years. Your hops might have different alpha levels or just a different taste, or our taste change. We decide we want to maybe make a small tweak because there's something that we maybe want to see, accentuated more, or, not accentuated as much. But for the most part, those recipes have been pretty stable. And then, a lot of other stuff that we do is, seasonal or, kind of one-off stuff. So, you know, it might change, year to year, season to season, just based on our taste. But I guess the only flagship that we've seriously changed, or we're in the process of changing, is our saison. We have been using the French saison yeast, and then with kind of realizing, diastaticus would make the beer continue to ferment in kegs while cold, and we were getting issues with overcarbonation. So it wouldn't, it would get overcarbonated, it wouldn't pour well, and it was something that we decided that we weren't ever going to distribute. We do very limited self-distribution, but it was just something we weren't comfortable sending out in kegs because of the draft problems that we'd experienced with it, or putting it in cans or bottles because we didn't want those getting, overcarbonating or exploding. So we've been exploring different yeasts, been calling it our Sunrise Experimental series, and just trying to find something that will taste similar, get, as close to the original as possible, flavor wise, but be a yeast that doesn't have diastaticus in it.
All right. Last question before we can potentially take a break if you need to refresh your beer or anything. What lasting changes do you see sticking around after the return to normalcy from the pandemic?
Definitely, some of the to-go options that we've, put into place. Obviously not cocktails. That's a temporary thing we're allowed to do, but, a lot of the, food to go that we're doing, and just, we were, canning, bottling before this, so that won't really be different. But I do see that being, an increased proportion of our sales for an extended period of time. I mean, people talk about things going back to normal, and, that's not just going to happen overnight, So I think even when we are able to reopen the tap room in whatever capacity that is, there's still going to be a lot of people that aren't comfortable going out to a bar and hanging out with a bunch of people. So they're going to still want those, takeout options, curbside options. We'll probably keep the delivery. We might not do it every day, but, it might be a service that we continue to offer after the fact.
Right on. Do you need to take a break, or you want to keep chugging along?
Me?
Yeah, you.
I don't care. I'm good.
All right. Well, I still have half a beer. Let's keep
Brought like
going.
3 beers out. I'm good.
Creating beers. How do you decide what types of beer you want to bring to the market?
I guess kind of like I was talking about earlier with all the non-beer options, we always just want to try to have something for everybody. You're not always going to please everybody, but we just try to, cover our bases in terms of, styles across the spectrum, from just super light, easy drinking to, malty beers to hoppy beers, sours, whatnot. So just, we'll plan our brew schedule, or release schedule, and then working back from their brew schedule, to just try to kind of have something, to fit various categories at all times, even though some of those beers may change. We're typically always going to have our Right Track IPA, our flagship, and then at least one other IPA. So we'll, rotate through, our double IPA series, or our New England style IPA series, or other fruited whatever IPAs. Always try to have something in the, light lager, category, and it's not always the same one. So yeah, just kind of, and then, with the seasons, try to fit the, different seasonal beers that we want to have, be it a Oktoberfest or a, um, stouts for the winter, that kind of thing. So that.
Let's talk about balancing your ideas with Nate's ideas when it comes to beer and how you decide or come to a compromise if it's necessary.
Yeah, so we work pretty well together in terms of putting together the types of beers that we want to brew, and honestly, like I was saying earlier, he's doing designing a lot of the beers, and we might collaborate on them. We might talk about various aspects of it, but I trust him to do his thing, and he's always makes great beers, and so I trust his judgment and don't get in the way too much as far as that's concerned.
Do you have a favorite hop to brew with, and why is that your favorite hop?
No. I like all the hops.
How about like a character in a hop? Fruity, citrus, earthy? What's your favorite? Anything?
Sure, citrusy, like dank hops. Just depends what it's going in, I guess. Yeah.
How about yeast to ferment with? I know you kind of touched on that earlier. What's your favorite yeast?
So I did really love French Saison yeast. Kind of sad that we aren't using that anymore. But yeah, we have a few kind of house yeasts that we keep going, pretty regularly. And one of them is a Belgian Bastogne. We use that in a few of our beers. It's just really nice to me. Like, there's a lot of, Belgian beers that, I'm not crazy about the, overly Belgian, esters, that come out of some of those yeasts, and that one's pretty restrained in that regard. You still get kind of Belgian character, but it's restrained. It's not over the top. So I do really enjoy that. There's always a different yeast for a different purpose. So we brew a lot with American ale yeast and some different lager yeasts, and just try to keep a few of them in rotation so that we're able to keep them going and get multiple generations out of them, keep them happy and healthy.
It seems like we always get this one. Well, we'll just sum it up. What's your favorite beer to come out of East 40 and your least favorite beer to come out of East 40? If you're willing to answer. We always get this one every week.
That's tough. Let me think about that one. Let's come back to that.
We'll do it. Moving on. Well, let's talk about like tips for new brewers. What is the most overlooked piece to brewing good beer at home?
Fermentation. The healthier yeast, the fermentation temperature, I think. Because that'll make or break. You could brew it, 100%, hit all your numbers, do an awesome job brewing that beer, get it in your fermenter, and then, pitch some old yeast, or, it's not healthy, or it's not, the correct pitch amount, or all those things are true, but you aren't controlling fermentation temperature, and it's, has temperature swings, or it's just in the wrong range. And any of those things will, completely change the outcome of your beer. So I think just really focusing on the actual fermentation part of it is probably the most important part.
I don't know what Mac is doing, but he's very distracting.
He's learning to count.
I think
One.
that's one, I think is what that is. How about something you know now that you wish you knew way sooner in brewing?
I think, water. I wouldn't say that I know it now that well, but Nate does. It's something that we definitely focus on, and it's something that, early in brewing really paid zero attention to. And again, it can have a pretty significant outcome, not saying you have to make a ton of changes, but you have to know what you're working with, and if you need to make changes, know what those are and what impact it might have.
Let's talk a little bit more advanced homebrewing. What malt do you think, and just one or two is fine, what malt would you say a homebrewer should keep on hand?
Outside of base malts, because if you're going to keep something on hand, should be two-row Pilsner, or white wheat, something like that. Outside of those, though, I think my favorite malt is Golden Naked Oats. I think it's awesome in everything. Just a touch. Really adds a excellent mouthfeel, flavor. I love it.
How about hops that people should keep on hand?
Yeah, just I guess depends what styles you're into brewing most. I think Centennial is probably, one of my favorite kind of versatile, dual purpose, if you will, hops, because it has a really nice flavor, used late in brewing, but also has a high alpha, so you can use it to bitter about anything. Beyond that, I don't know what got me hooked on it, but I always use a lot of Mount Hood, kind of have that on hand. I feel like it's pretty versatile too. It's a lower alpha, so you're not gonna, use it to bitter unless it's a very low bittered beer. But it's something widely available, cheap, and I think really nice flavor to it.
What beer trends have had the greatest impact on you as a brewer?
I wouldn't really say I'm a trendy brewer. I always just kind of brew what I like to brew, or have other people brew what I like. But I don't know. We try to, we don't always have like classic styles necessarily. We do brew outside the box or brew some, trending styles. But we're not, trying to follow the trends or, stay ahead of them in that regard. We're just always trying to have, have something that, everybody can drink or, so yeah, I wouldn't say we're super influenced by trends, but obviously when something's super popular, you try to brew something to fit the bill.
Speaking of trends, are there any trends that you wish held on that are now gone in beer?
Are Pilsners and lagers still popular? Is that a thing?
I think they're starting to make a resurgence.
Those are good. Yeah, I think, too often we get away from, just really easy drinking and approachable beers, and get to the crazy pastry, double hazy bullshit that Mac brews.
That's a good answer. Yeah, I'm with you. It's like how much shit can we put into a beer? That's what we do now.
I'm just giving you shit, buddy. Saw you your face over there.
We're both picking on Mac at the same time. There he is. I was trying to find his picture, see how upset he was. Don't cry, buddy.
No, yeah, I just simple beers. Like to keep it simple, not do, we'll brew stuff, with adjuncts and, some somewhat off the wall stuff, but just try to keep it simple, not do anything too crazy. So if those styles are ever trending, I would like to see those come back, those trends.
Is beer more of a job now, or is it still a hobby?
Definitely a job. Definitely a job. It's still fun. But I don't think I can consider it a hobby anymore. But no, I still enjoy doing it. Obviously, like talked about, I don't do a lot of the brewing. It's just running the business. But that's still fun. That's something that I enjoy.
I guess we'll ask this last question. Is there anything particular that you're excited about in the current beer scene other than lagers and pilsners, if they're coming back? Any trendy beers that you actually enjoy?
I don't mean to say that I don't enjoy some of those beers. But I don't know what's popular. Sours obviously made quite a resurgence several years ago and have stayed kind of in the popularity zone. And I thoroughly enjoy, my sour beers. New England's took me a while to come around to. I didn't understand it at first, but I get it now. I enjoy several of them. What was the question? I don't know where I was going.
You're good. I was just asking if there was anything that, in particular, that you're excited about in the current beer scene. And after this, Brad really wants us to take a beer break. Then we're going to come back and do our rapid fire session, and then I'll wrap up any other questions that anyone has.
Right on. Yeah, no, I don't have any more to add to that.
All right, we'll take a beer break, Brad. He's waving. You guys want to be unmuted so we can talk for a second? Nick says no. No one else is saying anything. All right, guys, if you have questions, get them in because we're about to wrap up here. Has anyone seen Storms? He's been gone out of that chair for a long time, unless he just ran away again.
Just found the chat. That's cool.
Oh yeah, there's a lot going on in that chat. Do we wait for everyone other than Brad to get back and then start it anyway? All right, do you have your answer to the favorite and least favorite beer from East 40? Don't answer yet. But Dakota really wants that answer.
I don't. Bet that.
We'll save that one for very last.
I think I got my favorite. Least favorite.
I'm calling Brad. Lame. All right, who wants to move on without Brad? And Eric, I guess. Eric's gone now too. All right, let's do it. All right, so let's get to a couple of these other questions. Let's talk about water. Kevin wants to know about water. If you're running off a filtered municipal water, you have an RO system, what that looks like.
Yeah, we're just filtering municipal water. We do not RO filter it. We just do carbon filtration and then test it, see where we're at, and see if there's any additions that we need to do, which typically just depends on what we're brewing. Definitely testing it frequently, see where we're at, and make sure that our filter is doing its job. Make sure we don't have any chlorine, chloramines, all that kind of stuff.
How often do you test it? Is it like in every beer or like once a month, yearly?
I'd say monthly. If we're, yeah, definitely monthly. It is, like I said, keeping on top of making sure that our filter is doing its job, but then also, seeing where the water's at, because it does change throughout the year. Blue Springs has 3 different water sources. I think any water source would change throughout the year, but especially when they're getting it from 3 different places, some groundwater, some surface water, and they're getting it in different proportions. You're definitely going to see some changes throughout the year.
Are you sending your water off to test it, or do you do that in-house?
Just in-house, just a pretty simple kit. I forget what it's called. Mott water something or other. Little blue case.
Kevin, do you have any more water questions? No? Okay, just making sure. Just making sure. He's like, he's really interested in that water. I like it. All right, this one comes from Eric. Where do you get your yeast from?
We use BSI, Brewing Science, something out of Colorado.
Do they have any proprietary blends or anything that you're using?
No, nothing proprietary. I think the strains we're using could be found from multiple suppliers.
All right, let's get into our rapid fire. I'm going to ask questions and type as fast as I can. You got to answer as quickly as you can.
Oh boy.
Favorite non-Kansas City brewery?
Four Hands?
That's a good answer. Coolest tap room that you've been to?
Stone.
Favorite beer of all time?
I don't know.
Lame.
In terms of quantity, Natural Light.
I'm going to type that out. In terms of quantity. I love it. Favorite non-malt ingredient in beer, and you can't use hops?
Water.
Kevin's like so happy you said water.
Water.
All right, I'll put it. It's fine. Most underrated beer style?
Fucking lagers.
Fucking lagers. Got you quoted. All right, let's go back to Dakota's question. You've been bouncing around on this one. What is your favorite beer to come out of East 40?
Oktoberfest.
All right. Least favorite?
I didn't get to that one.
Oh, okay.
What was that one Dakota brewed? Just kidding. That one was good. I love that.
That's awesome. All right. Is there anything that you want to share about your brewery with us that we haven't discussed already? Maybe things that are coming up, food you're going to be coming up with, anything you want. Now's your time to shine.
We got nachos coming out and beer cheese soup, and it's fucking delicious. And since I've been talking about lagers. We got a common coming out on Wednesday. We've had it before, the Jackson County Common, but it's making its return, and it is tasting quite nice.
And that's Jackson County Common, right?
Yep.
I'm going to have to swing by and get me some of that. All right, I'm going to stop recording, and then I have one more question for you.